Hey VC, what's up? It's me. Excuse me, get that straight in there. Yours truly. I am back to post a quick video here. And as you can tell by the title, I'm sure you've probably seen these videos popping up a little bit over the past few days. This is a Gimme 5 for Steve Carlson. If anyone watching this that hasn't heard yet, Steve Carlson, of course, has been kind of a mainstay here in the VC for quite some time. Definitely kind of the positive energy, happy-go-lucky kind of guy when he's doing his videos. And it's always a pleasure to watch. And unfortunately, he got caught up in that flooding that took place up north. Um, and his house was just kind of right there. And so not only is he having to deal with the damage and that causes to your home, and then you dive even deeper into losing just you know not on your daily routine, but then just also just things of so much sentimental value that can't be replaced. And then on top of that, you had his collection, which is pretty vast as well. So it's just kind of like, the triple, quadruple whammy hit him in that regard. And of course, that happens in the midst of a pandemic. And it's just kind of like, man, you hate to see that happen to, especially one of our fellow VC members that we love and know so well. Um, but in true VC fashion, people have been kind of stepping up and just kind of being there for Steve. And we're doing this Give Me Five thread to let him know that we're thinking about him. And they also started a GoFundMe page, which I'll make sure to go back and put the link below for that, which has really been awesome too. Because I don't know, maybe it was up a day or couple of days or something like that when I first went, and I kind of just been checking back in on it every day. And I think I've seen the goal has been raised 3 times, something like that, 2 or 3 times. Excuse me, which I just find freaking awesome, and it just goes back to just kind of the love of the VC, um, and it's really cool. Not cool in what's happening to people, but cool in the sense that even with this whole pandemic thing that's been going around, there's been a few people in the VC that have just kind of really stepped up with that love piece, trying to help people out. And so, in the midst of us, showing the love to Steve Carlson, I want to make sure I mention too Billy Hurst in this video, because he's been doing Facebook Lives about once a week, I think. And I kind of kick myself for this too, because I'm not on Facebook, so most of the things that happen VC wise on the Facebook, I'm like 100% disconnected from, so to speak. But Billy's been doing those Facebook Lives and doing tips through the Facebook Live, and he's been taking those tips and he donates them to different businesses in the area that have been suffering because of the shutdown with the pandemic and everything. So I mean, it's just, again, just kind of another great example of just kind of how the VC love just circulates in so many different ways to try to help so many different people. And kind of one more time here for Steve Carlson. So I'm kind of saying I'm kicking myself because, again, I've not being a part of Facebook, I always want to remember to try to figure out a way to go back and donate to the shows that Billy does, and it just always ends up slipping my mind because I'm not a part of Facebook. Um, but yeah, I said the love is awesome, and I'm glad I can be a tiny part of it, and it just, I don't know, just of course does my heart so good to see everyone stepping up for Steve in the way that they are, because it's awesome. It, it's that old sense of kind of family and true community, which I feel is has gradually been kind of erased, so to speak, in American culture, kind of across the board. But it's just really, that's why I think it does my heart so good when you actually kind of see it coming back into play somewhere and really, really kind of taking place. So love you, VC. Absolutely love you guys for that. Um, but let me just kind of jump into the Give Me Five, which was, 5 artists or, whatever that have the name Steve in them. So I tried to be a little, try to challenge myself a little bit and see how many or how few albums can I get to get 5 Steves in there. And, without going into, you know, little fine print of some, photo taken by Steve, not, not trying to get that fine. So I basically narrowed it down to 3. So I was able to get 5 Steves in 3 albums. Uh, So the first two are going to be artists, and then the last one I actually decided to do a song because I think it's one that really fits the situation kind of well. So let me just kind of dive right into it. So how do I get 5 Steves in only 3 albums? Well, of course, you start with this one here, which is Journey. And you have Steve Perry, obviously, probably the first Steve that comes to most people's minds. But then you also have the drummer, Steve Smith. So there were 2 Steves in Journey, Big Steve and Little Steve, if you will. So that's how I get the first 2 Steves, the first 2 Steves. And then for Steve 3 and 4, go to this album right here, or really kind of any of the early Billy Idol albums. And that is because when you go to his sidekick, which is no guitarist, Steve Stevens was his name. So with Steve Stevens, you get 2 Steves in one name. So that's how you get to 4 Steves in 2 albums. Again, without going too much into the fine print. And then for the 5th, I decided to go with a song. And like I said, I think it's just kind of very fitting to really kind of this entire situation, by Blues Traveler. And this is the maxi single for Runaround, which I bought right when 4 first came out. And there was a couple of tracks on here that were they're non-LP tracks. And one was Regarding Stephen, which actually ended up becoming and still is my favorite Blues Traveler song ever. And I thought that was just really fitting, not only because, the Stephen part, but it's basically a song that's kind of about a guy who had left home and was just kind of concerned about, which I assume kind of was his brother, that he left at home, that he knows was dealing with just a bunch of, tough stuff, horrible stuff. He just knew that he was going through some pretty severe times, and kind of like the title indicates, Regarding Stephen, it's just kind of him asking and wondering and just dwelling in, like, gosh, I wonder how Stephen is doing. I wonder, how things are going and all the difficult things that he's dealing with and has dealt with and all of that. So I thought between that song title and what Steve Carlson and his family are dealing with right now, that was one that was so fitting that I couldn't resist not making sure that was my number 1 pick for the Gimme 5 to Steven. So again, Steve, I hope you get a chance to catch this. I mean, I know watching VC videos are probably far from being on your priority list right now, but one way or another, I hope you feel all the love that's coming from the VC. And again, I know Steve thanks everyone, but there's just something inside of me that also just wants to thank the VC for once again just kind of showing that there still is, the goodness, the heart, the community, and the caring. It's always good to see examples of that, especially when we're dealing with just so much negativity, out there right now with everything that's been going on in 2020. So yeah, everybody stay safe out there. Again, thanks so much, and we will talk to you soon.